Hello friends, if I'm talking a little bit loud, it's because we're recording this after we did the sound clips. That's right, today is big amps, big tones, probably some big tinnitus for me after this, so stick around. Hope you dig it. So, way back in the golden days, before the Empire, I used to play in kind of these fratty, rock, funky bands in the 90s, and I had to play with a lot of clean amps, but the lead tones I dug were more the sounds of someone like, I don't know, Slash. So I used a bunch of pedals, I used some different preamps, I went through a rack unit phase, definitely did a bunch of stuff to try to capture that sound while I could still play single coil guitars and the like for the rest of the set. Then one day it hit me when I played a Les Paul through a JCM800. You want that bacon flavor? Sometimes it's easiest just to cook the bacon. Just cook bacon, and there it is. There's the bacon flavor. It's right there. Bacon. There. You just put a Les Paul through a JCM800, and it's pretty rockin'. So we had a chance to revisit that feeling, and let's have a listen and see how it went. So, a little bit about this JCM800 that we got to play through. It's from 1990, British made. Supposedly is vintage, I guess. I don't consider 1990 vintage. I have adult memories, okay? But like, it sounds fantastic. We're running the 412. It's the real way to roll. You got a 50 watt head, 412 cab going, and it is just a gateway drug to some heavy riffage. It's fantastic. We had a lot of fun with this thing and got a little gnarly. One thing about big amps that's really fantastic is that when you're using modulation pedals or tone-based effectors, things that sweep through frequencies, there's just so much more for the guitar and the amp to work with when you've got a big cabinet pushing air. We realized this when we worked on our phaser pedal. Arigato sounded so good when we were using big amps, and sometimes that doesn't translate as well when you're in little amps and you're hearing these things through YouTube. So we had a chance to play this thing, and hopefully when you're watching this on the YouTubes, you'll have decent speakers or something and you'll capture some of that feeling in the room, because man, it sounded so good as this thing would sweep. So you might be wondering, what is this wee little amplifier, this pleasant little thing that Philippe is holding here? Well, I've bought this amp 3 times, okay? I can't help myself. I've bought and sold these things. This is the 3rd time I've owned one. It is a Sovtek Tube Midget, kind of an offensive name. Definitely offensive name. Let's just say this about this Sovtek Tube Midget, okay? The name is offensive. The tone is aggressive. I've had the chance to play and own these things over the years. It is just a handful. I was first exposed to this when I played in a band in DC with a guy who was starting a kind of a pre-alt country band called Wish You Were Gone, and he had used this for punk gigs, and then he was using this for kind of his clean amp sound. And I was really pleasantly surprised about how the clean amp was. And then when I turned this gain channel on, you plug into this high, oh boy. This is a lot. I'd heard that these are based on JCM800s, so we had the chance to just do a direct comparison and see what we think of this thing versus an 800. So let's play some of the same riffs and see how it compares. This is a little bit different because while it's supposedly based on an 800, I haven't gone deep diving into the schematics, but just on a cursory glance, you can tell that this is running 5881 tubes as opposed to EL34 tubes, which are in the 800. Probably some other differences, but we really heard a big difference between this amp and the 800, even though this is supposedly the poor man's 800, as we were told in the 90s. In conclusion, man, this thing, his Sovtek was so much more aggressive than I remember, and the JCM800 is actually milder than I remember. I was kind of caught off guard. I think Ben and I were both saying it was almost like this realization they have about 20% less gain, or 10 to 20% less gain than you remember them having. And what I think I remember hearing from JCM800s was frequently the sound of them getting pushed frequently by a screamer or booster or some other overdrive pedal, or people were hitting them with really hot pickups, as was the a la mode of the time, you know, with a super distortion or a Duncan JB to push them into overdrive a little harder. This thing, my God, this thing is a scary amplifier. I definitely felt like I was in danger sometimes playing this thing. And man, it is a treat. It is almost more of a hot rodded 800 sound. than what I thought it would be. It's definitely just hairy and aggressive, and there's a lot of bass in this thing. It's at times kind of rattling the cabinet and rattling its own cabinet as well. We had to silence it for a while by Ben holding it down while we tracked some clips. So anyway, that's our takeaway from this, and we hope you dig it. Stick around, subscribe to the mailing list, subscribe to this channel. We have some treats for you I'm going to show you. Hold on for a second. So the first treat I want to show you are these Meteor pedals painted by the legendary Laura Bennett. She was known for her work with Z-Vex and Penny Pedals and some other makers as well, and she's done a batch of pedals for us over the years. These are the first Meteors she did, and there's a limited number of them. So if you loved that reverb sound that we had when we were making these amps go clean, we have a limited batch of them done by Laura Bennett here. Very, very cool. Just lovely and really durable art. It holds up on a board as well. So make your pedal boards beautiful, okay? Do that. Second thing we want to talk about is that we have another batch of Parabola Pawn Shop Edition pedals out among our retailers. These are starting to go out. It's a hammered gray as opposed to the silver, and it definitely has a lot more gain in this preamp. But the beautiful thing is if you just keep this from 9 o'clock down, it's still a cleanish tremolo sound, and it'll do all the classic Shaler sounds that you like. It's just if you crank this up, it gets to kind of that dirty, cheap amp that we found, that dirty old cheap tube pawn shop amp vibe with cranking this up. So dig that. That's available through our retailers now. And as a treat for our Canadian retailers, we have a limited batch through our distribution up there of Canadian Bacon pizza pedals. That's right, Canadian Bacon. It's red and white like the Canadian flag. It's got these pointer knobs that are fun. It's got the maple leaf in the middle instead of the pineapple because it's Canadian, you know. I mean, that's just the way it rolls. On the inside, it's got mismatched BC183 transistors, mismatched with the 5088 for a different kind of sound. It's just very cool. I mean, it has a great nasty sound that you know from pizzas, but a different kind of flavor to it. So yeah, with the mismatched transistors and the Canadian flag and all the fun stuff, I mean, this is a fantastic pedal for our friends up north. So, you know, when you have to play your Bryan Adams or Alanis Morissette or Tragically Hip tunes, you'll have a tone worth talking about. So for the listening test, we're going to keep it stupid. That's a good blooper. So for the listening test, we're just going to keep it simple, stupid. Did I mean to call you stupid? God. Let that cat in. Mr. Romeo, come on.